Ubisoft is a lot like EA in many ways. They're a massive company. They actually own some really cool IP that they could do a lot of really awesome art with, but unfortunately it's often monetized and penny pinched and abandoned at the first sight of a sales slump or missed expectations or anything like that. And Watch Dogs is one of those things that's kind of been on the chopping block off and on for years. Now, I've only made one video about Watch Dogs in the past. It is a series I would actually like to cover more in the future, just because I really enjoy the premise of it. I really like the first game. I wasn't really paying attention to video games, I guess I should say modern current games, when it came out, so while I do know that there was a lot of valid criticism to how the game launched compared to how it was presented in E3 and all these other tech demo shows, I played the game years after it came out, and I really enjoyed the story of Aiden Pierce. I liked the world. I liked going around Chicago, interacting with digital worlds, CTOS, playing all of these different minigames. To me, Watch Dogs 1 was a big example of what Ubisoft could do in an open world modern day or future game if they put their mind to it. But it was also kind of a proof of concept. There was the idea that more could be done going forward, and the first game actually set up a lot of interesting ideas, pretty much kind of leading into a vigilante origin story where the character sort of goes full-on Batman mode by the end. I guess I should say Batman mode while still killing people, but you know what I mean. Maybe a little more like the Punisher. And Aiden Pierce was one of those interesting characters that I thought could have been the Ezio of the Watch Dogs series, how Ezio kind of springboarded Assassin's Creed into even higher popularity. Unfortunately, there was a lot of pushback to his character when he first came out. I personally think that there's a lot of misunderstandings as to who he is. A lot of people thinking he was supposed to be the unequivocal good guy and that you were just supposed to side with him at all times instead of him being kind of a complicated, dark character. But I digress. Because of that failure to connect with a lot of audiences, even though it connected with me, Watch Dogs has never really found its footing. It never really found what it wanted to be as a series. Did it want to be this serious, dark, gritty thing with fun elements in it, like the original game? Did it want to be this more silly, like, alt-punk, fun computer simulator, tech punk guy running around in a future world doing fun stuff and making quips like Watch Dogs 2 with, I believe, Marcus Holloway was his name, which I personally think is a step down in character storytelling. But obviously, you know, the gameplay has changed over time where, like, there's more interactables in the environments and stuff. So Watch Dogs is a weird thing where it's like it never found that footing, because by the time of Watch Dogs Legion, its third game, which actually came out back in 2020, it got kind of mixed to favorable reviews. A lot of fans did not enjoy it on both ends. The serious Watch Dogs fans didn't like it, and a lot of the more, you know, whatever, this is just kind of a fun little world to romp around in Watch Dogs fans didn't like it as much because it didn't actually have a solid character direction. It was basically a game that was experimental and interesting where you could play as pretty much any NPC you wanted to, and that was your character, but the story had to be designed so generically around it in order to actually compensate for that, that they later on went back and added in extra characters like an assassin, or even, you know, from the Assassin's Creed series, they had created their own unique assassin. Or they even added back in an older Aiden Pierce in London. Now, the point of everything I'm saying here is that Watch Dogs is a series that never found its identity, but now it's supposed to be getting a film. Now it's supposed to be getting a movie basically set in that universe, which is reportedly going to star Sophie Wilde, and it's going to kind of work as like a in-universe story sequel where it's kind of off doing its own thing like the new Fallout show was, right? But it's not going to my understanding, they're looking to not override the stories they've already told or set it in an alternate universe. This is actually going to be in the canon of that universe. Now, I don't really think this is a great idea, not because of people like Sophie, who's a good actress, not because of people like the director, Matthew, I believe it's Turi, who is a French film director. I don't speak French, so sorry if I said it wrong. And supposedly the screenplay is also being written by Christy LeBlanc, who's known for writing the Netflix original sci-fi thriller Oxygen, which I wanted to throw in here from Deadline, who reported a lot of this. But here's the thing, it's not really about the talented people attached to this story. It's about the fact that Watch Dogs is something that's been kind of hanging from a precipice for a while now. Watch Dogs 1 was obviously a mixed bag. The people who played it at launch were upset that it wasn't what it was advertised as, and you know what? I think that's fair. I just wasn't one of those people. A lot of people found it later and really enjoyed it, but again, that was way after the fact by the time Watch Dogs 2 was already out, so they had already changed their course. But then they didn't stick with that course because it also got some criticism and some, I would say, detractors about the more shallow end of the story. Like, these games were never really able to match up with the depth of Assassin's Creed in a lot of ways. I personally thought Watch Dogs 1 was very much on its way to that kind of storytelling. I thought it did a very good story and I enjoyed it. But a lot of these games, especially 2 and 3, they didn't ever hit those heights of Assassin's Creed recognition. There was really nothing there that was pushing this brand to the forefront as a Ubisoft breadwinner, as like, this is our next thing. And we saw what happened to Prince of Persia when it started slumping and Assassin's Creed picked up the slack. It got shelved for years, many, many years, and is only finally making a resurgence now with some newer games. What worries me about the Watch Dogs movie is that not only does this movie have to contend with the fact that this series never found its actual identity and never committed to what it actually wanted to be, but also the fact that this movie could be the straw that broke the camel's back. This could be the thing that gets more people interested in Watch Dogs as a series. This could be the thing that gets more people wanting to go out and buy the games, wanting to get involved. You know, the new Fallout show, for example, while Fallout was already extremely popular, I've gotten a lot of messages from people saying, hey, you know, you should watch this show. I know you're a fan of the Fallout games, and this actually made me want to play the games. I had never played the games before, and I watched a couple episodes of this, and I was interested. So there is always that gateway possibility with these storylines, with these movies, TV shows, comic books, anything. And I think that that's always what it's kind of supposed to be. Something that enhances the story, brings in new audience members, pleases the old, and tries to work within the confines of that universe. But when your universe doesn't have any solid footing, when it's never committed to what it is, how do you do that? That's actually the question that I personally have for a Watch Dogs movie. How do you fall into a universe that has been so generally inconsistent in tone, in storytelling depth, in characterization, and has gone so far off the rails that it had to bring back its original protagonists just to try and salvage the third game? That's not a great place to be as a series. Imagine if Assassin's Creed was kind of floundering so hard that they had to find a way to make a DLC to bring back Ezio to get people interested again. Now look, I'm glad that Aiden Pierce was back. He's my favorite character from the Watch Dogs universe. But I'm just saying that they were never able to really move past what the game series was to find out what its identity should be. It also doesn't help that when it comes down to it, Ubisoft has always played tongue-in-cheek with their universes and connections between them. I'd actually love to make a video on my theory of the Ubisoft shared universe. It very much relies, though, on what your opinion is between author and, I would say, consumer or like reader response. I went to college for communication, literature, and arts, which is basically a fancy way of saying books, English, reading, language. And one of the main things that you look at is the philosophy of who matters. If I write a story and I put it out into the world, is my word gospel on the story and everyone else can just shut the hell up? Or do I lose some of that control when I release it out to the world because you'll have human interpretations that are also valid in some ways? Or maybe you'll have people see something deeper in the story that I didn't even think of that psychologically made its way from my writing into that story. And so because of that, there's this weird element with Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed and even Far Cry where they will reference each other, like Watch Dogs will reference Abstergo. They'll put a character from AC4 directly in the first game. They will have footage of Aiden Pierce in the trilogy of RPGs for Assassin's Creed. I believe it was in Odyssey, it might have been in Origins, but essentially where you see Aiden Pierce shooting a Abstergo member. You know, you'll have all this stuff where they reference each other, even, of course, as well, the assassin that they created for Watch Dogs Legion, where it was an original character that they put in there and they wrote as a member of the Assassin's Brotherhood. But then behind the scenes, Ubisoft writers, they'll always say, no, these are all just like fun, like little nods and tongue-in-cheek things. They're not really in the same universe, but like there's constantly in-game material saying that they are. So then you also have the question of like, why? It's very obvious that you tried to commit to that with, you know, almost having a transmedia connection with Assassin's Creed 4 and Watch Dogs 1, and then you backed off from it when there was criticism of Watch Dogs 1. But then you didn't stay backed off from it, you just kept kind of leaning into it off and on, but telling people don't look too far into it. There's all this inconsistency around Watch Dogs, its universe, its tone, everything that I think makes telling stories in this universe very difficult. It also does come down to the fact at the end of the day for me, that one of the things about video games that's so fun is interaction. This is something I want to throw in the end as just a general point. It's something I've said before, but I really do think it applies to Watch Dogs. With Watch Dogs, one of the biggest selling points of this series was always interacting with the world around you. There's a thunderstorm outside in case you hear that. I'm not farting that loud. They're usually silent, but deadly. But I will say that interacting with the world through things like CTOS, where you can take your phone out in the game and bring up road barriers, or you can hack someone else's phone and distract them, or you can maybe, you know, cause the water system in the city to malfunction, raise and lower bridges, all of these kinds of things, even hack cars so that you can steal them, bank accounts, all of this stuff, right? This is all interactive. That does not mean that you can't tell a good story watching it. That does not mean you can't tell a good story with somebody else doing it. But one of the biggest things that Watch Dogs always sold itself on was you are in the driver's seat controlling this world. It's one of the reasons why people were so disappointed when the interactivity wasn't up to the standard that they thought it should be with the first game because of what they were shown before launch. Because the fans of Watch Dogs have always been so interested in controlling a character where they can make the world do things. They can make that world, figuratively, I guess, and sometimes literally, move in the ways that they want. Without that, you do run the risk of having a generic sci-fi near future storyline that we've seen 100 times before in dystopian, you know, in all of these genres and stories. And we've seen stories about hacking. We've seen stories about action heroes with guns. We've seen all this stuff. You also really run the risk of writing it super cringe. Because at the end of the day, we all know the memes of like the person hacking and typing on the computer and saying, well, I just need a few more minutes. A lot of those memes and a lot of that stuff has come from TV and movie writers not really knowing how to make that sort of thing work on a movie. You know, when you are playing a game and you have to hack something and you play a mini game to do it, that's one thing. When you have to watch a character in a movie hack something, you're not playing a mini game, you're not doing anything. You're watching some guy type on a computer and seeing generic vague stuff on a computer screen. At the end of the day, it's not that this can't be made. It's not that I don't want it to be good. In fact, I think I come off sometimes like I don't want movies or games to be good. That is never, ever the case. I would love it if every single piece of media ever released was an A++ piece of art. You know why? That's more for me to enjoy, that's more for you to enjoy, and that makes the world a better, happier, more fulfilled and fulfilling place where we all connect through these pieces of art together. But my problem is that all of these roadblocks together, I think, really stand in the way of Watch Dogs materializing as a good film or TV project that isn't just another generic sci-fi near-future hacking show with a guy with a gun that misses the point on what Watch Dogs was originally setting out to be with its first entry and never found its footing afterwards. I'm interested to hear your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more content. Watching other videos from me really does help me out. YouTube is very, very unsteady. It's a very odd platform where I never really know how to get people to see my stuff. So it really does help me out when you leave comments. Let me know what you think. I also do have other channels like JayRPG, which is JayRPG, in the description below, where I cover RPGs, JRPGs, all kinds of stuff. Like I talk about Fallout, Dark Souls, Kingdom Hearts, all kinds of games like that over there. We have our own Let's Play channel, Degenerate Plays, in the description below, where we play through games. We also do have our own merch store, which is actually cosmobunny.shop. You can use code DJAY123 for 10% off any of our recycled resin comic book pieces, which we actually go to comic book stores, manga stores, and get damaged things they're not able to sell. We take some of the paper, we turn them into transformative art in these coasters, keychains, and more. Then we recycle the rest of the paper. We use recycled packing materials to send our stuff out to you. And maybe you're not in the market for something physical. Maybe you're a digital person in the digital age. Well, our Fortnite code DJAY123, which is actually the same as our discount code on cosmobunny.shop, is something that helps out our channel a lot. We appreciate it. You use it in the support a creator option in the store on Fortnite, and we appreciate you so much. We hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shway.